After years of high-stakes meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and the quiet pull of influence in city halls across the state, I finally stepped away. Not retired in the classic sense. No gold watch or farewell party. But I'd learned how to disappear without anyone realizing I'd left the room. That's a rare skill, one that takes decades to master. The lake house had been mine for more than 12 years, bought long before anyone dreamed of turning this stretch of shoreline into a planned community. Back then, it was just a weathered cabin with a metal roof, a rickety dock I'd built myself, and the steady call of loons across the water at dawn. I leased it out to a wildlife group for most of those years, visiting only when life allowed. Now, after nearly a decade of absence, I was back for good, or at least for as long as the quiet lasted. I arrived with the basics: a duffel bag, a thermos of strong coffee, and my old lab, Rusty, who still sniffed every tree like it held state secrets before curling up by the fire ring. No agenda. That was the whole point. No emails, no calendars, no names to remember. Just the lake, the pines, and the kind of stillness I'd spent a lifetime earning. 3 days in, it began. A sharp knock while I was out back, splitting firewood. I rounded the corner, axe in hand, sweat on my brow. There she stood, mid-50s, hair locked in place with enough spray to survive a hurricane, pastel sweater draped like a badge of office, clipboard pressed to her chest like a shield. "You must be new here," she said, her voice bright but edged, eyes scanning my cabin as if it had personally insulted her. Or just passing through. "This is my home," I replied evenly. Her lips twitched into that smile people use when they're certain they're still in charge. "Your home? I see. Well, I'm Patricia Hargrove, president of the Pine Ridge Lake HOA. I'm sure you've received the welcome packet, the rules for lakefront use, noise limits, fire safety, dock permits, all of it." I let the silence stretch. "Ma'am, I've owned this parcel since before Pine Ridge existed, before the roads were paved and the covenants written." She blinked once, then recovered with practiced condescension. "Things have changed. The entire shoreline is now under association governance. Even legacy owners are expected to comply with community standards." "Legacy owners?" I asked. She tapped her clipboard. "Properties purchased pre-HOA. We make allowances, but rules are rules." I said nothing. She kept talking, voice sharpening. "My truck was parked partially on the communal path. My dock wasn't on file. There were procedures, paperwork. I couldn't just use the lake without approval. I'll look into it," I said flatly. "That wasn't enough. I'll return tomorrow with the forms. We'll process your status formally. A compliance review may be necessary for everyone's safety." She turned on her heel, shoes crunching gravel like a judge's gavel. Rusty wandered out from under the porch, yawning. "Yeah, boy," I muttered. "This ought to be interesting." That night, I sat on the dock with a glass of bourbon, moonlight dancing on the water. I thought about the mornings I'd spent here with my son when he was small, teaching him to cast a line, promising the world was fixable if you worked at it. The air smelled of pine and promise. Patricia didn't know me yet, but I'd met her type in boardrooms, state capitals, and back offices. People who confuse a title with real power. I'd advised governors, shaped zoning laws, navigated the shadows behind the rules. This wasn't about a dock. It was about someone mistaking my quiet for weakness. Her first mistake. The next morning she returned in a gleaming SUV with a magnetic HOA sign. Clipboard upgraded to a tote bag stuffed with brochures, as if she could sell me my own property. "Good morning," she chirped. "I brought the materials to get you on board quickly, especially as a legacy resident." I nodded politely, but stayed silent. She launched in. Pride in the community, shared vision, thriving standards. She handed me a thick envelope: bylaws, fee schedules, parking rules, landscaping guidelines, dock permits. Section 4B flagged in pink. Lakefront usage required board approval for anything that might interfere with collective enjoyment. Approval from whom? I asked. The HOA board. We meet the second Thursday. I gesture at the dock. She blinked. The board doesn't recognize pre-HOA modifications unless grandfathered in. We have no record of that. I raised a hand. I'm not asking permission to use land I own. I don't need your board's approval to sit on my own dock. Something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, not fear yet. I'm here to help you integrate, Mr. Harlan. Jack Harlan, I supplied. She noted it, pen hovering. You're not in our registry. I'm not a member. Everyone within Pine Ridge boundaries falls under our jurisdiction. I never signed covenants. Never agreed to annexation. If your plats claim otherwise, check with county records and city zoning. Her smile tightened. We've had complaints. Firewood pile, early truck noise, unregistered vessel. Your canoe needs a decal for emergency tracking. I chuckled. Not amused, just recognizing the playbook. Ever serve, Miss Hargrove? Ever lead people who didn't already want to follow? She stiffened. Excuse me. Because out here, respect is earned, not printed on a pamphlet. Silence settled. A loon called across the water. She recovered, clutching her clipboard. We'll be in touch. Review the documents. As she drove off, she glanced back in the mirror, puzzled that her routine hadn't worked. Over the next week, the notices arrived like clockwork, slipped under the door, taped to the gate, pinned to the porch. Unauthorized shoreline trimming, Section 4C. Non-compliant with stacking, fire hazard. Vehicular obstruction of a shared easement, a deer trail. Each carried veiled threats. Fines, loss of lake access, enforcement action. No one introduced themselves. No welcoming pie. Just sideways glances from neighbors who'd once waved. Patricia's web was wider than I'd thought. I didn't reply. Instead, I studied the packet. Conflicting rules, vague language, clauses ripe for abuse. Section 4B. Interfere with collective enjoyment, no definition. Legacy properties vaguely addressed, no clear process. Annexation request filed 2 years ago. My parcel marked pending dispute. No final approval. I noted everything. A flyer appeared, mandatory community meeting. Topic: non-compliant lakefront use by Mr. Jack Harlan. They weren't hiding anymore. That night, under the cabin's flickering bulb, I pulled out my legal pad. Not to argue, to dismantle. I drafted municipal charters, fought zoning wars, collected favors from people who owed me. I had contacts in planning, assessment, a law firm that remembered a bailout. But first, I'd wait. Let her overplay. 3 days before the meeting, a yellow placard staked by my dock. Violation. Use prohibited. Barcode to their site. I photographed it, then filed a formal grievance with city zoning, citing deed history, annexation flaws, overreach. First domino. The morning after, neighbors I'd known for years, Tom and Linda a few lots down, walked their golden retriever past. Tom slowed, then looked away. No wave. Later in town, old Jerry at the general store gave a stiff nod and buried himself in canned goods. Isolation by design. The meeting came. I went jeans and flannel, sat in back. Patricia stood center stage, navy blazer, pearls commanding. Mundane items first. Trash pickup, garden club, then the pivot. Concern regarding non-compliance on a lakefront lot. All residents, including Legacy, must adhere. Legacy status is no exemption. Heads turned. I stayed still. I left before the scraping chairs. Next day, a sign by my mailbox. Property under administrative review. I laughed. Desperation showing. That night, 2 calls. First to a land use attorney I'd helped years back. She sounded eager. Second, to Mayor Reynolds, my old intern when he was a high school teacher running for council. I'd shaped his first win. He owed me nothing, but loyalty runs deep. Jack, he said, smiling through the line. Thought you were off-grid. Was. Someone trying to redraw my shoreline. Thought you'd want to know. Tell me. By moonrise, the plan was set. Quiet. Precise. I hoped Patricia would back off. Some part of me still believed people fold when facts stare them down. But she doubled down. Saturday morning. Perfect spring day. Rusty and I returned from our walk to find her SUV blocking half my drive. Patricia in lime windbreaker, clipboard ready. 2 men in HOA polos behind her, tape measure, camera. Routine inspection, she announced. Unresolved violations. You don't have consent. You're on private land. Updated boundaries. Shared oversight. You're trespassing. She held up the clipboard. Board voted. Credible complaints. Safety hazards. I stepped forward. Stop photographing my dock, or I call the sheriff. We filed preliminary lien paperwork. Obstruction noted. That was it. I pulled my phone, started recording. State your name and purpose for entering private property. She hesitated, then ordered the men back. You're making this difficult. No, you are. I made the call. Mayor Reynolds answered first ring. Jack. Time. 90 minutes. I looked at Patricia. You should stay. You want to hear what he calls me. She tried bravado. Friends won't. You'll see. She marched to her SUV. I waited on the dock, Rusty at my side. 90 minutes later, city SUV rolled in. Mayor Reynolds stepped out, gray blazer, easy stride, flanked by staff and zoning chief. Patricia emerged just as he looked up, grinned wide, and called loud enough for the whole shoreline. Morning, boss. You didn't say it was this bad. She froze. Mouth open, closed. Clipboard limp. The moment hung. Silence like thunder. Reynolds shook my hand, nodded at the lake. Still peaceful, as I remember. Was, I said, until they started rewriting maps. Patricia found words. Mayor Reynolds, I wasn't expecting. You should have called before inspections, especially on a legacy property with clear deed protections. With respect, we followed protocol. Full jurisdiction. Incorrect. He cut him politely. Annexation pending, never certified. Registry shows exemption. No covenants. Dock compliant under 2009 codes. The zoning chief flipped pages. Parcel remains independent. No CCRs. Any enforcement, harassment. Patricia paled. Complaints, safety. Safety doesn't justify fabricated violations or unlicensed entry, I said. Reynolds folded arms. Irregular. No open elections in years. Enforcement contract to your brother-in-law. Fees from ungoverned properties. She clutched the clipboard. Highly irregular. What's irregular is starting with a warning. Could have brought county council. She climbed in, engine started, drove off. No eye contact. Reynolds turned. She'll push back. Counting on it. He clapped my shoulder. Still the Jack I remember. I never left the game. Just changed fields. They left. Zoning handed me the cease and desist copy. Sympathetic nod. Next morning, no notices. But bullies don't quit. They panic. Word spread. Neighbors shifted. Curiosity, then cautious respect. Tom dropped by with tools to fix my shed latch. Brought his son. Needed to learn real work, he said. Knew she was bluffing. Knew she had no foundation. We thought fighting meant losing everything. You had leverage. Sometimes one voice calling nonsense cracks the illusion. The illusion cracked wide. New president. Ellen Morales, retired teacher, knocked with bread and apology. We suspected. Didn't act. Understand. Staying. Until it feels like home again. She asked me to advise the new council. I declined title but helped rewrite bylaws quietly. Clear consent, due process, no retroactive overreach. Audit followed. Inflated fees, no elections since 2016, brother-in-law's contract suspended. Reimbursements. Legal notices, not criminal but damning. Patricia sold quietly. New family moved in, kids, dogs, paddleboards. They waved. I waved back. HOA became neighborhood council, cookouts, cleanups, kayak lessons. Rules serve people. My dock stayed mine. No signs, no tags. One evening Ellen brought the new charter, shorter, fairer. You inspired the grandfather clause. You did the work. We sat watching sunset. She handed me a photo from the last gathering. Families, kids, dogs, me at the edge holding a plate, talking to Reynolds. You belong in this. I tucked it away. Later I called an old friend running Veterans Outreach. 2 weeks later, over 70 attended from 3 counties. I sat in back with Rusty, coffee in hand, watching knowledge spread. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's calm water, neighbors finding voices, a bully quietly unseated. That fall leaves turn gold. String lights in the park. Apple trees planted. Kids racing rafts. No decals checked. Pine Ridge exhaled. One night on the dock, stars bright, water glass smooth, I whispered what I'd held since her first knock. Not possession, presence. Standing ground. Staying. Rusty knows my leg. We walk back. Lights on, door unlocked. Peace. On my terms. What do you think? Have you ever dealt with an overreaching HOA, a bully hiding behind rules, or felt the slow burn of injustice in your own life? Drop your thoughts in the comments, your stories, your stance, whether you fought back or walked away. Let's talk about where the line should be drawn between community standards and personal freedom. Your voice matters.